can't believe I heard. They just want Democrats to agree to keep the Epstein files closed. They want that chapter done and over with, because in the Epstein files, Trump appears over and over and over again. And yeah, they will do anything to stop the truth from coming out, including keeping the government shut down just to protect Donald Trump. That's all this is about, is protecting Donald Trump. Meanwhile, there are millions of people across the country that are starting to suffer because of the government shutdown. But do Republicans really care about that? No, they really don't. And they've shown they don't, because they're willing to open it up. They just want to put Democrats in the awful position of, yeah, we'll open it up, but the Democrats are going to help keep the Epstein files closed. I want to know what you think. Do you think the Democrats should sign on to that, or should the Democrats say, hell no? Let me know in the comments.
So the Republicans really don't know how to maintain the plot. It is very hard for them to get their lies straight. For example, they've been claiming for the longest time that the Epstein files didn't exist. And then they said they did exist when we found out in May that Trump's AG said he was in them. So they had to find some way to say that yes, he's in them, but it's a good thing. So they claimed he was a whistleblower against Epstein, even though he was friends with him for 20 years. Actually, I guess what they're saying now is that he was an FBI informant. But informants are people who are guilty who are trying to avoid jail. Also, again, friends with him for 20 years. But then Trump is claiming that the entire thing is a hoax. So how is it a hoax, but he was also an FBI informant? But now, after this disgusting letter that he wrote Jeffrey Epstein for his 50th birthday has been released publicly, he and MAGA are trying to claim that the whole thing is fake. It's not real, it's fake. And that's not actually his signature, which, yes, it fucking is. But here's the thing that they don't realize about their lie, because all of the Republicans in Congress are getting behind this now. They're saying this is fake. This came right from Epstein's estate. So did the Democrats break into Jeffrey Epstein's house and plant this 20 years ago so that it would come out and hurt him now in 2025? Make that make sense.
And as he loves threatening to sue everybody, why is he not threatening to sue Epstein's estate? It's because he knows that if he did, Epstein's lawyer and his accountant would then become witnesses. But he also knows that signature is 100% his. It's been studied by graphologists. His signature has been described as very unique and almost impossible to forge. The expert detailed at great length just how unique his signature is and what he does with his O's and with his strokes at the end of his name. And it's identical to the current signature he uses today. And it is also exactly the same as another letter that he wrote in 1996 and in 2000. And he's not suing anyone over this because he knows it's his.
I got something for y'all. So do y'all know that supposedly Jeffrey Epstein is not even in jail? He's hiding out in the Middle East being protected by Israel. Yes. I read that shit today and I'm like mind blown behind it, because I didn't even think about that, y'all. Like, what the fuck? I felt stupid because I hadn't even thought of that. Like, what the hell? And yeah, I mean, apparently it's a hoax that he's in jail. Nobody can verify that. They're being paid to say that he's in jail. I think they have someone in jail that looks like him. But he supposedly is hiding out in the Middle East being protected by Israel. And you already know who's behind that too. Your president. I said it. Your president. And don't get in my comments talking about that's what I voted for, because you sound fucking foolish, bro. Like, I'm so confused by people that say that's what I voted for, but then y'all tell people that you're not evil. Crazy. It don't make sense.
The Epstein files have to be horrendous, like absolutely horrifying, worse than any of us can even imagine. Think about all of the things that have come out, all of the things that Trump has done publicly and not even cared about, all of the things that he's done and not cared about, and still he's gotten away with all of it. And he's dying to protect these Epstein files and still will not release them. It has to be worse than any of us could even imagine. It has to be the absolute worst thing that any of us could think of, even beyond all of what we already know about them. All of what we've seen about Jeffrey Epstein, all of what we've seen about Donald Trump, it has to be a billion times worse than that for him to be protecting them this hard. Like, whatever's in there has to be probably the worst thing that anyone has ever done anywhere. Unforgivable, completely unforgivable, and disgusting. Think about all of the things that this man has said in his career, televised. Literally grab her by the cap. On TV, he would F his own daughter. Like, think about the things that he said publicly. Go look it up, and then think about how much worse it has to be for him to be covering up these files.
What I'm about to show you is an actual court document filed in 2016. It accuses Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein of terrible acts against a 13-year-old girl. Look at this. So this girl was promised money and a modeling career to attend some parties in New York that were held at Epstein's residence. At least 4 of these parties were attended by Trump. And by the time of 1994, Donald Trump had known Epstein for at least 7 years. Here's a quote from Trump. "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy." Here's another quote from Trump talking about Epstein. "He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." Trump knew that this girl was just 13 years old. And here's where it gets terrible. Donald Trump initiated contact with the plaintiff at 4 parties, and on the 4th and final encounter with Trump tied her to a bed, exposed himself to her, and proceeded to forcibly grape her. During the course with this savage act, the plaintiff loudly begged Trump to stop, but with no effect. Donald Trump responded by striking this girl in the face with his open hand and screaming that he would do whatever he wants. And you guys can read all of this, but I'm going to finish off here. Immediately following this grape, Donald Trump threatened the plaintiff that if she ever revealed this to anybody, he would have her family killed. But look at this. Read this whole thing if you want to. It's absolutely terrible. Unfortunately, this case was later dropped, but not because what happened wasn't true, because Donald Trump threatened this girl's life and her family's lives. And this isn't fake, this is an actual court filing. I think we all know why this has gotten so little attention. Ask yourself why the same people screaming "protect children" are supporting this guy.
Liberals all of a sudden seem to care about the Epstein files, but they haven't cared about it when Biden was the president of the United States. Why didn't he just release the files when he was, president of the United States? Me personally, I've always cared about holding the people accountable that took part in the Epstein files, regardless of what political party they are affiliated with. Something like this should absolutely never happen, and the government should never cover it up. So with that being said, this isn't some new profound thing that is being focused on. Second, Donald Trump campaigned on releasing the Epstein files. There are many videos that you can find of him campaigning on it. Third, if Joe Biden made this huge thing about releasing the entire Epstein file, then nobody would have believed him on the Republican Party, because Donald Trump would have just said that Joe Biden was weaponizing the government to make him look like he was participating in the Epstein files. When the Epstein files are released, let's just remember that Donald Trump is president of the United States, and he has been very meticulous in who he picks to be in those positions, aka people that are loyal to him. Thus, he cannot spin it as some liberal takeover of the government to try and make him look bad.
Republicans blocked the release of the Epstein files for the 4th time now. And I just want to point out the fact that the reason why the Republicans don't want the Epstein files released is because they're protecting the president, who is on the list, and Jeffrey Epstein, who was a Mossad agent. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent working at the behest of Israel to gather blackmail on world leaders. Didn't matter whether it was Bill Clinton or Donald Trump or Prince Andrew or Mohammed bin Salman. His job was to gather blackmail on politicians, celebrities, world leaders, etc., etc., etc. Also, a fuckload of the Republicans in the House, in the Senate, in Congress all went to that island. And a bunch of Democrats, don't get me wrong. However, here's the thing. Every single Democrat voted to release the Epstein files, and only 4 Republicans did. Every other Republican, except for the 4, voted to lock them up because they don't believe that you should see them because they are protecting their fredophile president, Donald Trump. So listen, demand the release of the Epstein files. I do find it a little bit of a coincidence that Charlie Kirk, who was Trump's best boy, suddenly started to bring up the Epstein files to the point where Donald Trump had to call Charlie Kirk personally and tell him to shut the fuck up. And then, of course, as you remember, Charlie was like, listen, I'm going to trust my friends in the government. I'm not going to talk about the Epstein files anymore. Listen, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but some things are, they're just like right in front of your face, and if you just open your fucking eyes, you can fucking see them.
The photographs you were referring to, if they exist, if they are in the Epstein files, would be a huge reason for Donald Trump to fight as hard as he has fought to keep the Epstein files secret.
Totally. Totally. I mean, they are described in pretty plain, ugly terms by a fairly well-known individual, a witness, who said that he was shown them not once but twice by Jeffrey Epstein, and that he saw them put into Jeffrey Epstein's safe. So if that witness is to be believed, we know they exist. We know they show Trump with half-naked girls. We know they were at one point in Jeffrey Epstein's safe. And we also know that the FBI went back later and seized the contents of the safe and, frankly, the rest of the premises, if it looked like it was related evidence. So it was an easy question. Did the FBI find the photograph?
And the answer was not no.
And the answer was not no.
From beyond the grave, she is still trying to expose the truth. Virginia Giuffre, the most well-known of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, kept a handwritten diary in the final months of her life. And now, after her mysterious death in April, her family has released it. And what's in there? It blows the FBI and DOJ's narrative completely apart. She wrote that Epstein had hidden cameras everywhere and that she saw them herself. She said the FBI has that footage. She claimed those videos showed her being abused by powerful men and that they were used for blackmail. Now remember, the DOJ just issued a statement about a week or so ago saying there's no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed anyone. But Guffrey's own words say otherwise, and it gets darker from there. There's a former sheriff deputy, John Mark Dugan, who says he too has those tapes. He was asked to safeguard them. Then in 2016, the FBI raided his computers and took it all. So if he's telling the truth, that means the FBI has had these tapes for nearly a decade, and yet here we are, being told that they don't even exist. So what's going on? A dead woman left a diary to make sure the truth got told. And the government seems more interested in keeping secrets than exposing predators. So I want you to ask yourself something.
Donald Trump has allegedly told former disgraced Fox News host Bill O'Reilly that the reason he doesn't want to release the Epstein client list, which we were also told this week doesn't even exist, is because it would ruin a lot of people's lives. And, you know, that's just not fair. And to be clear, according to O'Reilly, Trump wasn't talking about the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. No. He was talking about Epstein's friends. You know, the people who may have just gone to lunch with the guy, but didn't engage in any of the illegal activities, never went down to the island, never flew on the plane. They were just casual acquaintances. And, you know, we don't want to ruin those people's lives by releasing the client list. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, none of that makes any sense, don't worry, because none of it makes any sense. I will read you O'Reilly's exact quote that he told Chris Cuomo on News Nation this week in just a second. Before that, a quick word from today's video sponsor. So as I said, Bill O'Reilly, disgraced former Fox News host, was for some reason on Chris Cuomo's News Nation program again this week because he goes on there frequently. And I guess if you're going to talk about anything involving a sex scandal, Bill O'Reilly is the go-to guy, right? I mean, that's why he was ousted from Fox News in spite of being their highest rated host. So if you want to talk about cover-ups of, you know, sexual activities, I guess Bill O'Reilly's an expert. Seems a very dumb thing for News Nation to do, by the way. Very, very questionable. The fact that you even have O'Reilly on the network to begin with, very questionable about your ethics and morals. Even Fox News wouldn't take him. So, you know, something to think about, News Nation. But anyway, O'Reilly told Cuomo this. He said that on St. Patrick's Day, he sat down man-to-man, eye-to-eye about the Epstein files, and he said, and I agree, there are a lot of names associated with Epstein that had nothing to do with Epstein's conduct. They maybe had lunch with him, or maybe had some correspondence for one thing or another. If that name comes out, those people are destroyed because there's not going to be any context. Then why would they be in the files? Let me just ask that very obvious question. The files relate to Epstein's criminal activity, not to his daily life of who the fuck he was having lunch with, okay? It's his criminal activity. So if their name is in there, right off the bat, that's going to tell you that there is some suspicion around that individual, okay? Like, I don't think the FBI would have gone through and been like, Epstein had lunch with this guy this day. We don't have his name anywhere else in here.
The Epstein files are being withheld is not what you think. Sure, it would be easy to think the reason that the federal government isn't releasing the Epstein files is because Trump was friends with Epstein. It'd be easy to think about that, to say that, but that is not what's happening. As it turns out, they have begun the release of these files, and what they found is mind-blowing. What they found, honestly, has rocked me to the core. Now, to suddenly find something that points towards what my barber said being the absolute truth in the Epstein documents, you can understand how that has shaken me a little bit. And it should shake you too. It should shake you up a little bit to know that for years, the United States government has had very advanced technology, that we have been exploring the galaxy, that we have bases on planets that we thought were barren, empty wastelands. There's already a garden city on Mars, apparently. But when I saw that Jeffrey Epstein explored Uranus, I got to tell you, it really blew my mind. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't, let's just say Epstein's island is nothing compared to what Epstein did on Uranus, rather. Epstein is all over Uranus. Epstein apparently spent any time that he was on planet Earth, he was hanging out on your anus. He was just there.